The mindset of a millionaire begins when a hard-working man stops worshipping effort and starts studying power. Because hard work is honorable, but it is not enough. A man can wake up early, stay loyal, take extra shifts, sacrifice weekends, and still remain poor if every hour he gives only strengthens someone else's position. That is the trap. He confuses being useful with becoming powerful. Money does not simply follow discipline. It follows ownership, leverage, visibility, negotiation, and control. If you own nothing, measure nothing, sell nothing, and build nothing that works without you, your effort disappears the moment you stop moving. But the answer is not arrogance, shortcuts, or pretending to be rich. That is only poverty wearing a costume. The real shift is colder. Stop asking, "How hard did I work?" and start asking, "What did this effort build that cannot be taken from me?" John D. Rockefeller began as an assistant bookkeeper earning 50 cents per day. Andrew Carnegie began as a bobbin boy in a cotton mill, earning $1.20 per week. Both men started near the bottom. Both men knew labor. Both men knew pressure. Both men knew pressure before the world respected them. But millions of men worked hard in their generation. Millions woke up early. Millions sacrificed their bodies. Millions followed orders, carried weight, endured long hours, and disappeared into history with almost nothing to show for it. So the difference was not hard work alone. The difference was conversion. Rockefeller converted bookkeeping into commercial discipline. He studied numbers, costs, margins, transportation, refining, waste, scale, and control. Carnegie converted brutal labor into skill, skill into proximity, proximity into opportunity, and opportunity into ownership. He became a telegraph messenger, learned the equipment, became an operator, moved into railroads, then steel, then ownership. In 1901, Carnegie sold Carnegie Steel to J.P. Morgan for about $480 million. The lesson is not that every hard-working man becomes Rockefeller or Carnegie. That is fantasy. The lesson is colder. Labor is only the raw material. Strategy decides whether that labor becomes power. Here is the question most hard-working men avoid. Why do some men work for 40 years and own almost nothing, while another man uses the same 40 years to build assets, reputation, systems, leverage, and freedom? The answer is not luck alone. Luck exists. Privilege exists. Markets are not fair. Some men are born closer to the gate. Some inherit money, social capital, introductions, confidence, and rooms they did not earn. Only a fool denies this. But power does not care whether the game is fair. Power asks whether you understand the game before you sacrifice your life inside it. Machiavelli wrote that men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand. In modern language, people reward what they can see, measure, use, buy, trust, and fear losing. Hidden effort is often treated like non-existent effort. That is why the hard-working man stays trapped. He gives labor, but he does not build evidence. He gives loyalty, but he does not build leverage. He gives years, but he does not build ownership. He gives his best energy to systems that become stronger while he remains dependent. And if you do not understand this, you can become the most reliable man in the room and still be the easiest man to replace. This is not theory. This is your time. Your money, your status, your ability to say no. A man without leverage must accept what a leveraged man refuses. He accepts low pay because he has no alternatives. He accepts disrespect because he needs the position. He accepts bad clients because he has no pipeline. He accepts invisible work because he has no proof. He accepts exhaustion because he thinks suffering will one day be rewarded. But suffering is not a strategy. The world does not promote men because they are tired. It promotes men who create value, Others can see, trust, buy, use, or fear losing. That sentence should disturb you if you have been worshipping effort. Because maybe the problem is not that you have not worked enough. Maybe the problem is that your work has been aimed at survival instead of power. Maybe you have been building another man's machine while calling your obedience discipline. Maybe you have been confusing exhaustion with progress, because exhaustion feels morally clean. It gives you a story. It lets you say, "At least I am trying." But the market does not pay you because your story is painful. It pays for value that is positioned, visible, scarce, useful, and transferable. This is where the millionaire mindset begins. Not with luxury, not with pretending to be rich, not with rented cars, fake confidence, expensive clothes, or empty quotes about success. It begins when a man becomes ruthless about one question. What remains after my effort is finished? Reason 1. They confuse effort with progress. A man can be busy every day and still build nothing that compounds. This is one of the most dangerous traps for hard-working men, because effort feels noble, busyness feels productive, exhaustion feels like proof. When a man is tired, he feels justified. When he is overworked, he feels serious. When he sacrifices weekends, sleep, and comfort, he believes he is moving forward. But movement is not progress. A man can run inside a cage and still remain in the same place. The hard-working man says, "I gave everything." The strategic man asks, "What did I build? A skill, a portfolio, a system, a client list, a product, a reputation, an asset, a measurable result, a body of work, a process that reduces future effort, a relationship that opens a door, a piece of proof that can travel without his explanation." If nothing remains, then your effort evaporated. You did not build power. You rented your energy. This is why many hard-working men feel betrayed. They believe the world should remember their sacrifice. But the world does not have a memory for hidden labor. It has a memory for evidence. That sounds cruel because it is, but it is also liberating. If the world responds to evidence, then your mission becomes clearer. Stop trying to be understood by people who have no proof in front of them. Stop begging them to believe in your potential. Stop confusing private intensity with public value. Build what remains. If you spend a year working hard, and at the end of that year you have no new skill, no stronger network, no proof of results, no savings, no asset, no audience, no system, no leverage, and no better position, then you did not lose because life was unfair. You also lost because your effort had no architecture. Hard work is only progress when it leaves behind evidence. That is the first cold rule. Effort must become proof, or effort becomes dust. And this is where most men begin to feel exposed. Because it is easier to say, "I worked hard," than to admit, "I built nothing that could speak for me when I was not in the room." That admission hurts, but it is the beginning of power. Because once a man stops worshipping effort, he starts designing outcomes. He stops asking, "How much did I suffer?" He starts asking, "What did this suffering produce?" He stops measuring days by how tired he feels. He starts measuring days by what remains: a proof asset published, a skill improved, a dollar saved, a debt reduced, a system created, a client contacted, a result documented, a weak habit removed, a stronger environment entered. The poor mind looks for emotional validation. The strategic mind looks for residue. Something must remain. But even evidence is not enough if every dollar still requires your physical presence. Reason 2. They sell time. Instead of building assets, time for money is the starting point. It is not the throne. Most men begin by selling time because they have no other asset. There is no shame in that. A man who starts from nothing must often sell his hours first. He must learn discipline. He must learn work rhythm. He must learn reliability. He must survive. But survival must not become identity. The trap begins when a man gets used to exchanging life for money and never studies how to escape the exchange. If every dollar requires another hour, you are trapped inside a ceiling. You can become better. You can become faster. You can become more useful. But if the structure never changes, your income remains chained to your body. The moment you stop moving, the money stops. The moment you get sick, the money slows. The moment you lose the job, the income disappears. The moment the market changes, your security evaporates. That is not freedom. That is dependence with a schedule. If your income dies the moment your body stops moving, you do not own wealth. You own a treadmill with a paycheck attached. The millionaire mindset studies assets. An asset is something that can keep working when you are not actively pushing it. A business process, an investment, a piece of content, a sales system, a digital product, a client pipeline, a brand, a reputation, a code base, a portfolio, a skill so scarce that the market must pay more to access it. This is where many hardworking men fail. They improve their effort, but not their structure. They become more disciplined inside the same cage. They become more reliable for the same master. They become more exhausted under the same ceiling. They work harder in the same trap and call it growth. But growth is not doing the same thing with more pain. Growth is changing the relationship between effort and outcome. Rockefeller did not merely work in oil. He studied the mechanics beneath the oil business. Costs, margins, transportation, refining, waste, scale, control. He understood that power was not in being the man who carried the barrel. Power was in controlling the system that made the barrel profitable. Carnegie did not remain the boy in the mill. He moved toward communication, railroads, infrastructure, steel, and ownership. He climbed the chain of leverage. He did not just work harder. He moved closer to the point where decisions controlled labor. This is the difference. The poor man asks, "How do I get paid for this hour?" The strategic man asks, "How do I use this hour to build something that pays me later?" One question keeps you surviving. The other question begins building wealth. This does not mean you quit your job tomorrow. That is childish. A man without options should not romanticize risk. But it does mean your job cannot be your whole strategy. Your paycheck must fund your escape from total dependency, not become the cage you decorate. Use income to buy time. Use time to build skill. Use skill to build proof. Use proof to create demand. Use demand to build leverage. Use leverage to create ownership. That is the chain. Break the chain and you stay trapped. If you work all week and recover all weekend, nothing compounds. If you spend your wages to look successful before you become financially strong, nothing compounds. If you use exhaustion as an excuse to avoid building assets, nothing compounds. If every month resets to zero, you are not building wealth. You are only surviving with better language. The first asset may not be a business. It may be a skill. It may be a portfolio. It may be a public body of work. It may be a client list. It may be a savings buffer that gives you the power to refuse humiliation. It may be a process that makes your work faster, clearer, and more valuable. But something must begin moving without your constant emotional drama. A man who owns nothing must beg for access. A man who builds assets starts negotiating with reality from a stronger position. But even valuable assets and skills can stay poor if nobody sees them. Reason 3, they stay invisible. Hardworking men love the fantasy that good work speaks for itself. It rarely does. Unseen work can be stolen. Unframed work can be ignored. Quiet competence becomes background labor. This is painful for men who believe dignity requires silence. They think visibility is vanity. They think promotion is arrogance. They think marketing is begging. They think if they keep their head down long enough, someone fair, powerful, and observant will eventually notice. That belief keeps men poor. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few really know what you are." That is not motivation. That is a law of perception. People do not investigate your soul before judging your value. They judge your signals, your output, your presentation, your clarity, your reputation, your confidence, your results, your network, your proof. The hardworking man says, "They should notice." The strategic man says, "I will make the proof impossible to miss." This is not about becoming loud. Loud men without proof are just noise. This is not about fake status. Fake status collapses when pressure arrives. This is not about pretending you are superior. That is insecurity wearing armor. Visibility only becomes power when it is attached to proof. Every week, ask 4 questions. What did I build? What result did it create? Who needs to see it? How can I make it measurable? These questions change a man. They force him out of vague effort and into documented value. They force him to stop hiding behind private struggle. They force him to build evidence that can travel farther than his emotions. If you are an employee, document results. If you solve problems, record the before and after. If you build systems, show the time saved. If you manage clients, track outcomes. If you create content, publish consistently. If you learn a skill, build public proof. If you help a business grow, measure the growth. If you improve a process, name the improvement. Do not wait for people to understand you. Make the evidence visible. This matters because hidden value is often treated as non-existent value. And when your value is invisible, weaker men with better signals can pass you. Louder men can take credit. Political men can frame the story before you speak. People can benefit from your work while forgetting your name. That is not always because they hate you. Often, it is because you gave them value without giving them evidence. And the unsupported man must understand this more than anyone. If you have no family backing, no network, no inherited reputation, and no powerful sponsor, you cannot afford to be invisible. You cannot afford to rely on someone else's generosity to explain your worth. You cannot afford to hide your work and then resent the world for not finding it. No support means proof matters more. No network means distribution matters more. No inherited status means signals matter more. No one is coming to translate your potential into opportunity. You must build the translation yourself. If you are the right man for this message, stop mistaking consumption for progress. You already know effort alone is not enough, but your problem is that you keep building in private and expecting the world to discover you. If you keep hiding your proof, you will remain useful to others and invisible to the market. Inside Patreon, you get deeper exclusive breakdowns, strategic frameworks, and unfiltered lessons designed to help you turn discipline into proof, proof into leverage, and leverage into freedom. This is not for men who want comfort. It is for men who are done asking permission to become undeniable. The decision is yours. Visibility is not vanity when it is attached to proof. It is distribution. But once people see your value, you still lose if you have no alternatives. Reason 4. They are loyal without leverage. Loyalty is not evil. A man without loyalty is unstable. A man who betrays everyone becomes impossible to trust. Loyalty can build reputation, relationships, and long-term opportunity. But loyalty without leverage becomes dependence. And dependence changes how people treat you. A company respects you differently when replacing you is expensive. A client respects you differently when other clients want you. A room respects you differently when your presence is not guaranteed. Even personal relationships change when access to you is no longer automatic. This is not romantic. This is reality. A man without alternatives must negotiate from weakness. He does not negotiate. He hopes. He hopes the company will reward him. He hopes the client will respect him. He hopes his family will understand him. He hopes his friends will support him. He hopes someone will see how much he has given. But hope without leverage is dependency with better language. That is why Machiavelli warned that a ruler must rely on what is in his own power, not on what is in the power of others. In The Prince, he argues that love depends on another person's will, while fear depends more on your own power to create consequences. In modern terms, do not build your future on other people's kindness. Build options, savings, skills, proof, demand, relationships, clients, investments, a public body of work, a second income stream, a reputation that travels without you begging. If you cannot leave, you cannot negotiate. That line is brutal because it exposes the hidden cost of many hard-working men's lives. They call it loyalty when it is actually fear. They call it patience when it is actually dependence. They call it humility when it is actually lack of options. They call it being realistic when it is actually surrender to a weak position. A leveraged man can be loyal because he chooses to stay. A dependent man is loyal because he is afraid to leave. The world can smell the difference. When you have no alternatives, people do not need to hate you to underpay you. They only need to know you have nowhere else to go. They do not need to conspire against you. They only need to recognize that your fear is stronger than your bargaining power. This is why a man must quietly build options before he announces independence. Do not threaten, build. Do not complain, build. Do not explain your worth to people who profit from misunderstanding it. Build proof, build demand, build savings, build skill, build relationships, build visibility, build assets. A man with options becomes calmer. He stops begging. He stops over-explaining. He stops reacting to every small disrespect as if his whole identity is on trial. He knows he can leave. He knows he can recover. He knows he is not trapped inside one person's opinion, one manager's decision, one client's mood, or one room's approval. That calm is power. Not because he is cruel, because he is no longer desperate. Loyalty is respected only when it is chosen from strength, not forced by dependence. But dependence is not only built by employers. Many men build it with their own hands, one emotional purchase at a time. Reason 5, they spend to repair their ego. Many men do not spend because they need the item. They spend because they need to feel less behind. That is the dangerous part. The purchase is not really about the watch, the car, the clothes, the restaurant, the phone, the trip, or the lifestyle. The purchase is about emotional repair. It is a private attempt to silence a public wound. A man feels ignored, so he buys something that makes him look seen. A man feels behind, so he buys something that makes him look ahead. A man feels small, so he purchases a symbol that lets him feel larger for a moment. A man feels doubted, so he tries to make the doubters notice a surface signal before he has built the internal structure to support it. This is poverty wearing a costume, and it is especially dangerous for unsupported men because the unsupported man carries a status wound. He has spent years feeling misunderstood by family, doubted by friends, invisible to society, and replaceable at work. He is tired of being treated like potential instead of proof. He is tired of being useful without being respected. He is tired of people looking past him. So, when money enters his hand, the temptation is not discipline. The temptation is emotional revenge. He wants the image of a rival before the foundation of a rival. He buys the watch before the asset. He buys the car before the cash flow. He buys the clothes before the competence. He upgrades the lifestyle before he upgrades the structure. And then he wonders why the pressure never leaves. The pressure does not leave because he did not build freedom. He bought a short moment of relief. He did not buy power. He bought anesthesia. Every dollar has a military function. It can either defend your future or flatter your ego. It can either buy optionality or buy attention. It can either protect your next move or decorate your current weakness. The millionaire mindset does not ask, "Will this make me look successful?" It asks, "Will this increase my earning power? Will this protect my attention? Will this buy back time? Will this build proof? Will this create ownership? Will this give me options?" If the answer is no, then the purchase may not be success. It may be ego anesthesia. This does not mean a man must live like a prisoner. It does not mean pleasure is forbidden. It does not mean beauty, comfort, or style have no place. A man should enjoy the fruits of his discipline when the structure can support it. But the order matters. Assets before symbols. Cash flow before lifestyle. Proof before performance. Optionality before applause. Because the world will happily sell you the appearance of power while keeping you dependent. It will sell you luxury on credit. It will sell you status without sovereignty. It will sell you a costume and let you confuse it with rank. And if you are not careful, you become the man who looks successful to strangers and feels trapped in silence. That is not victory. That is expensive insecurity. Every dollar spent to impress strangers is a soldier removed from your future army. The strategic man uses money like a weapon. He saves not because he is afraid of life, but because savings give him the power to refuse humiliation. He invests not because he worships numbers, but because capital can work when his body is tired. He buys tools, education, systems, access, and time, because these things can multiply his future output. The insecure man spends to be seen. The strategic man spends to become free. And this is where the difference becomes visible over time. One man spends to make others believe he is winning. Another man quietly builds the conditions that make winning unavoidable. At first, the spender looks stronger. He has the symbols, he has the photographs, he has the temporary attention, he has the performance. But time reveals structure. The symbols age, the debt remains, the attention moves, the pressure returns. Meanwhile, the disciplined man looks ordinary for longer than people expect. He is not impressive every weekend. He is not announcing every move. He is not buying the costume of the next level. He is building the next level quietly. Then one day he has savings. He has skill. He has proof. He has options. He has assets. He has demand. He has the ability to walk away from conditions that once controlled him. And people call him lucky because they did not see what he refused to buy. That is the hidden power of financial discipline. It does not merely change your bank account, it changes your posture. A man with savings stands differently. A man with low ego spending thinks differently. A man who is not addicted to impressing people becomes harder to manipulate. The man who needs applause is expensive to control. The man who needs nothing from the crowd becomes dangerous. But even disciplined spending cannot make you rich if you refuse to sell. Reason 6. They avoid selling. This is one of the deepest wounds. Many hard-working men are willing to work, but they are not willing to sell. They will study. They will prepare. They will improve. They will take notes. They will build in private. They will perfect small details no one asked for. They will keep telling themselves they are not ready. but they will not put value in front of the market and let the market respond. Why? Because selling exposes them. Selling means someone can say no. Selling means your value leaves your imagination and enters reality. Selling means your private identity gets tested by public response. To the unsupported man, rejection does not feel like feedback. It feels like judgment. It feels like every voice that doubted him has returned in a new form. It feels like proof that he was never as capable as he hoped. So he hides behind preparation, more learning, more planning, more tweaking, more private effort, more silent ambition, more waiting. But if you cannot sell, you cannot distribute value. Selling is not begging. Selling is controlled communication of value. It is the bridge between proof and money. It is how usefulness becomes income. It is how skill enters the market. It is how a man stops waiting to be discovered and starts placing his value where it can be judged, bought, used, and respected. The man who refuses to sell remains dependent on someone else to discover him. That dependency is humiliating in a quiet way. He wants opportunity, but he will not ask the market. He wants recognition, but he will not communicate the result. He wants income, but he will not make an offer. He wants respect, but he refuses the one activity that forces value to become visible. This is not humility. This is fear disguised as dignity. Rockefeller sold efficiency. Carnegie sold steel at scale. Warren Buffett sells trust, judgment, and long-term capital discipline through Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway's own annual report shows a compounded annual gain of 19.8% from 1965 to 2023 versus 10.2% for the S&P 500 with dividends. That is not one emotional breakthrough. That is not hype. That is not a lucky month. That is decades of disciplined capital allocation, trust, communication, and repeatable judgment. Pressure, markets move, people doubt, years pass. Action. Buffett built a structure that compounds capital and trust. First proof, disciplined investing and shareholder results. Power lesson, wealth favors men who can turn judgment into a repeatable system. But notice something deeper. Buffett did not only have judgment, he built a structure through which judgment could be trusted, measured, reported, and compounded. The value did not remain trapped inside his head. It became visible through results. It became legible to shareholders. It became a reputation. It became a machine of trust. That is what selling does when it is clean. It makes value legible. If you are skilled but nobody understands what you do, you are hidden. If you are useful but nobody can see the result, you are underpaid. If you are competent but nobody knows why it matters, you are replaceable. If you are building but never distributing, you are not strategic. You are hiding. This is why many hard-working men stay poor. They confuse creation with distribution. They think the work is finished when the thing is built. But the market does not reward the thing you built in secret. It rewards the value that reaches the right people in a form they can understand, trust, and act on. A man who cannot sell his work becomes dependent on a manager, platform, client, company, or gatekeeper to explain his value for him. That is a weak position. You do not need to become loud. You do not need to become fake. You do not need to manipulate. You do not need to sell garbage to people who do not need it. You need to learn how to communicate value without apology. What problem do you solve? What result do you create? Who benefits? Why should they trust you? What proof do you have? What is the cost of ignoring this? What should they do next? These questions turn vague value into market language. And if you cannot answer them, the problem may not be the market. The problem may be that your value is still unclear, unmeasured, or unpositioned. That is painful, but useful, because pain with information becomes strategy. Selling reveals the truth. It tells you whether your offer is clear, whether your proof is strong, whether your audience cares, whether your positioning is weak, whether your price matches your perceived value, whether you are solving a real problem or protecting your ego with an imaginary one. Rejection is not always a verdict on your worth. Sometimes it is intelligence. But weak men treat rejection as humiliation, so they avoid the data that could make them stronger. The strategic man treats rejection as market feedback. He studies the no, he improves the offer, he sharpens the proof, he changes the angle, he builds more trust, he returns with better positioning. That is how selling becomes self-command. Not because every person says yes, but because a man stops letting the possibility of no control his behavior. If you are the right man for this message, stop calling private preparation growth. You already know you need proof, but your real problem is that you avoid the moment where proof must face the market. If you keep hiding behind learning, planning, and perfecting, you will become the man with potential that never turned into power. Inside Patreon, you get deeper exclusive teachings, strategic breakdowns, and direct frameworks that help you convert skill into proof, proof into positioning, and positioning into leverage. This is not for men who want to feel productive. It is for men who are ready to become measurable. The decision is yours. But selling once is not enough. Wealth belongs to the man who understands repetition. Reason 7. They do not understand compounding. Poor strategy wants quick rescue. Wealth strategy respects accumulation. This is where most men betray themselves. They do not lose because they lack intensity. They lose because they cannot endure the boredom of intelligent repetition. They want the breakthrough. They want the moment. They want the sign. They want one conversation, one opportunity, one viral post, one mentor, one investment, one business, one dramatic change that saves them from the ordinary pressure of daily execution. But the world rarely gives power to men who need emotional rescue. Power goes to the man who can repeat the right actions long after the emotion disappears. Compounding is not only about money, it applies to skill, reputation, audience, trust, network, health, self-command. The man who repeats boring, intelligent actions for 5 years will defeat the man chasing emotional breakthroughs every month. That line is not motivational, it is mathematical. A skill practiced daily becomes competence. Competence applied publicly becomes proof. Proof repeated over time becomes reputation. Reputation distributed consistently becomes demand. Demand, managed wisely, becomes leverage. Leverage converted into ownership becomes freedom. But most men break the chain before it has time to become visible. They start, stop, restart, rebrand, complain, compare, escape, return. They confuse motion with strategy. They confuse intensity with discipline. They confuse a new plan with a new identity. They do this because the early stage of compounding is humiliating. At the beginning, the work looks small, the savings look small, the audience looks small, the results look small. The skill improvement feels slow. The market does not care. The people around you do not notice. Your family still sees the old version. Your friends still treat it like a phase. Your own mind asks whether any of this is working. This is the test. The weak man needs visible reward to continue. The strategic man uses invisible accumulation as evidence of control. He knows the first stage of compounding is not applause. It is proof of self-command. One article, one client, one workout, one saved dollar, one sales call, one skill repetition, one published result, one uncomfortable conversation, one better environment. One day of not betraying the plan, then another, then another, then another. At first, nothing appears to change. Then the structure starts to harden. Your skill improves, your language sharpens, your proof grows, your judgment becomes cleaner, your emotional swings lose authority, your standards rise, your old excuses become embarrassing. Your environment starts to feel too small. Your work becomes easier to trust because it has survived time. Then, one day, people call you lucky because they did not watch the compounding. They did not watch the nights you did not spend, the messages you did not send, the distractions you refused, the offers you studied, the work you repeated, the ego you swallowed, the silence you endured, the weak habits you cut, the private identity you stopped protecting. Compounding is cruel because it gives the early reward to your character before it gives the later reward to your status. Most men quit because they only respect visible rewards. They do not respect becoming the kind of man who can be trusted with repetition. That is why they stay poor. They do not need more motivation. Motivation is too dramatic. They need a structure so clear that even boredom cannot break it. Track output, track money, track skill, track proof, track health, track attention, track conversations. Track the things that actually move your future. What gets measured becomes harder to lie about. A man who does not measure his life can always hide inside stories. He can say he is trying, he can say he is busy, he can say he is preparing, he can say the timing is wrong, he can say people do not support him, he can say the market is unfair. Some of that may be true, but measurement asks a colder question. What did you actually do? What remains? How many times did you repeat the right action when nobody rewarded you? That is where power begins to separate itself from fantasy. The world calls it overnight success when it finally sees years of invisible accumulation. But even compounding dies in the wrong environment. Reason 8. They never change their environment. If your environment rewards comfort, distraction, cheap pleasure, and low ambition, your willpower will eventually bleed out. You cannot build a millionaire mindset while constantly returning to rooms that reward the old version of you. Environment is not just geography. It is your phone, your feed, your friends, your habits, your conversations, your standards, your default distractions, your bedroom, your desk, your calendar, your group chats, your emotional rituals, your repeated excuses. An environment is anything that tells your nervous system what is normal. If everyone around you spends emotionally, you will call discipline extreme. If everyone around you hates selling, you will call visibility arrogant. If everyone around you fears risk, you will call ownership unrealistic. If everyone around you lives distracted, your focus will feel lonely. If everyone around you mocks ambition, your seriousness will feel like betrayal. This is why willpower is overrated. A man can be strong and still lose if his environment is built to weaken him every day. Not because he is pathetic, because constant exposure trains the mind. Repetition creates normality. Normality becomes identity. Research on financial literacy and planning shows that knowledge and planning are linked to better wealth outcomes. Research on social networks also shows that social connections influence financial behavior, including saving and stock market participation. Translation: what surrounds you trains what you consider possible, acceptable, normal, and embarrassing. This matters because many hard-working men try to build a new life while protecting the environment that rewards the old life. They want discipline, but keep the distraction close. They want ambition, but keep taking advice from people who worship comfort. They want wealth, but stay surrounded by people who spend to numb themselves. They want focus, but keep feeding their mind with noise. They want power, but keep having conversations that make weakness feel normal. Then they blame willpower, but the deeper issue is design. A strong man does not only force himself harder, he changes the battlefield. Reduce access to distractions, spend time around builders, track output, raise the standard of conversation. Enter rooms where your old excuses become embarrassing. This last point matters. You need rooms where your excuses sound small. You need environments where people speak in output, not fantasy, where discipline is assumed, not admired, where selling is normal, where ownership is discussed seriously, where money is studied without shame, where proof matters more than intention, where men are not impressed by your suffering unless that suffering produced something useful. The wrong environment comforts your weakness. The right environment threatens it. That threat is necessary. Because the unsupported man often mistakes familiarity for safety. He stays around people who understand the old version of him because the old version requires no proof. They know his stories. They know his wounds. They know his excuses. They know his habits. They know his past. And if he grows, the social contract changes. Some people will not like that, not always because they are evil. Sometimes because your growth forces them to confront their own delay. Sometimes because your discipline makes their comfort visible. Sometimes because your ambition breaks the old hierarchy. Sometimes because your seriousness makes casual living feel judged, even when you said nothing. So the man faces a choice: belong to the environment that keeps him recognizable, or become the man who may be misunderstood until the evidence is undeniable. That loneliness is not always a curse. Sometimes it is the border between your old identity and your next level. But be careful. Isolation alone does not make you powerful. Isolation without structure becomes rumination. Solitude without output becomes fantasy. Cutting people off without building anything can become another form of ego protection. The point is not to hate ordinary people. The point is to stop letting ordinary standards govern extraordinary ambition. Your environment either normalizes your weakness or demands your evolution. Now the cold answer is clear. Hardworking men stay poor because they aim effort at survival instead of power. They confuse effort with progress. They sell time instead of building assets. They stay invisible. They remain loyal without leverage. They spend to repair their ego. They avoid selling. They underestimate compounding. They stay inside environments that train them to remain ordinary. The mindset of a millionaire is not about pretending money is easy. It is not manifestation. It is not arrogance. It is not luxury. It is not posting quotes beside rented cars. It is the discipline of converting effort into proof. Effort becomes skill. Skill becomes proof. Proof becomes visibility. Visibility becomes demand. Demand becomes leverage. Leverage becomes ownership. Ownership becomes optionality. Optionality becomes freedom. That is the chain. Break any link and you stay trapped. So stop calling yourself hardworking as if that alone should earn you a throne. Hard work is the entrance fee. It is not the strategy. The old identity says, I hope they notice. I hope they reward me. I hope they understand. I hope they support me. I hope effort pays off. The new identity says, I will build proof. I will control my signals. I will create assets. I will sell value. I will build options. I will become expensive to ignore. Machiavelli understood perception, power, and consequence. He did not write for men who wanted comfort. He wrote for men who needed to survive the real behavior of other people. And the real behavior of the world is this: It respects proof. It rewards leverage. It follows visible power. It negotiates with men who have options. It uses men who only have effort. You are not poor because you work hard. You stay poor when your hard work builds nothing that belongs to you. Now ask yourself one final question. When this week ends, what will remain? Not what you felt, not what you planned, not what you consumed, not what you promised, not what you explained. What will remain? A skill improved, a dollar saved, a proof asset published, a client contacted, a system built, a debt reduced, a reputation strengthened, a weak habit removed, a better room entered. Because the unsupported man does not need more pity. He needs evidence. He needs leverage. He needs the discipline to stop worshipping effort and start building power. Hard work is honorable, but incomplete. The millionaire mindset is strategic effort aimed at assets, proof, leverage, and ownership. The old man wanted to be noticed for suffering. The new man builds evidence until ignoring him becomes expensive. But there is one asset an unsupported man must build first before the money, before the network, before the reputation. That asset is proof that can survive without your explanation. Because if your value only exists when you are there to defend it, you do not yet have power. You have potential under pressure. Build something that speaks when you are silent. Build something measurable. Build something visible. Build something useful. Build something that can travel beyond your emotions, beyond your current room, beyond your family's doubt, beyond your friend's limited imagination, beyond the employer who benefits from your silence. A man does not become undeniable by demanding belief. He becomes undeniable by leaving evidence behind. Subscribe if you are done being the hard-working man everyone uses, but nobody fears losing.